Hey everyone! Before we begin today, we want to thank our newest patrons, Christina, Lauren, and Florence. Welcome to the team. If you want to support us too, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/pod and prejudice. And now, please enjoy our first episode covering the 2007 adaptation of Persuasion with our guest, the host of What the Austen, Izzy Meakin.
This is Becca.
This is Molly.
We're here to talk about Jane Austen.
We are here specifically to talk about
Persuasion adaptations. Listeners, if you're new here, I, Becca, have read many Jane Austen novels and watched many adaptations of her work.
And I, Molly, am doing all of that for the first time through this podcast.
If you want to hear Molly read through Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, or Emma for the first time, you can listen to seasons 1, 2, and 3 of this podcast, respectively. But that is not what we're doing here today.
No, today we are talking about Persuasion 2007/2008, depending on if you are based in the UK or in the US. And we are joined today by a special guest. We have Izzy Meakin here from What the Austen. Hello.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, the pleasure is all ours. Do you want to tell our guests a little bit about what the Austen and the work you do in the Austen space?
Yeah, absolutely. So, What the Austen is my podcast, similar to your guys' podcast. It is all about Jane Austen. I started it, I think this is the fifth year now of the podcast. So, yeah, a lot of character studies, unpopular opinion episodes. I do villain offs on it. And then I also have guests on for every single episode. So, from, historians like Hilary Davidson, who's a fashion historian, to people like Jill Hornby, who a lot of your listeners might know. She's the author of Miss Austen. And then also some like different people like Tom Ailing, who collects and sells first editions and loads of different copies of books. He's an incredible collector of books. So yeah, it's kind of varied. And then a lot of people just from like the book talk, booktube world as well come on. So I just try and pull people from across the community so that I can hear from everyone really and yeah, get their thoughts and feelings on different topics around Jane Austen.
I love that. I think our listeners would be particularly interested in the series that you did talking about Jane Austen books and what Taylor Swift songs are their kind of soundtracks, because we have a lot of Swifties in our in our listenership.
I loved doing that series. It was so fun. Yeah, and it was great as well because I actually did that with two friends that I made through the podcast, so Anne and Martha. So they were such chilled episodes as well because we were just basically just having the kind of conversations we'd have anyway. So yeah, I loved recording those ones, and I do recommend checking that out. And then, addition to the podcast, I also make vlogs in relation to Jane Austen. So I live in the UK, so I'm really lucky that I can go to a lot of the locations like Jane Austen's house, a lot of the filming locations. I've just put out a vlog recently about my trip to what was Mr. Collins's humble abode in the 1995 Pride and Prejudice. So yeah, a lot of travel vlogs as well, which are on there. So yeah.
Not the ones with the shelves.
Shelves in the closet.
Yeah.
Honestly, when I opened the closet, there was no shelves, so I was slightly disappointed, but it was still incredible. Like it was it was such an amazing experience still.
The gasp, Molly and I simultaneously gasped that there were no shelves in the closet. It's okay. It's okay. And that is still a wonderful experience. But I'm sure in person you were like, oh,
Yeah, it was so funny. And what's amazing is someone commented on the video and they were like, I feel like Lady Catherine would like have a serious issue with this. And I was like, yes, she was seriously displeased. But yeah, it was funny.
amazing. So before we get started into our discussion, we're going to chat a little bit with Izzy about your relationship with Jane Austen, starting with the question, what is your relationship to Jane Austen?
Oh, amazing. So I often say it's like a lifelong love, which isn't far from the truth. So, my mum initially got me into Jane Austen when I was really young because she would watch the 1995 Pride and Prejudice adaptation when she was ironing. So I saw like a lot of it just, as I was like growing up. And then when I was about 7 or 8, I actually went to World Book Day as Elizabeth Bennet. My mum made me an outfit with like a bonnet and everything. Nobody
Oh.
knew who I was. Like nobody else in my year like had any idea who I was, which is absolutely fair. Because they were all there as like really cool like characters, like Nancy Drew or like Harry Potter or something. I'm just like I'm Lizzie Bennet. But yeah, that was really cool. And then yeah, my love just kind of grew as I got older. Obviously, I started to like read the books. So that was like through high school and things. And then I actually studied English literature at uni. So I did my dissertation or thesis on a Jane Austen topic. It was actually on like the side characters how she kind of discards the side women characters in her books for the heroine to get a happy ending. So people like Charlotte Lucas, Eliza from Sense and Sensibility. So it was a bit of a dark topic, to be honest with you, but I really enjoyed it.
I love that. That's so interesting. I could write a thesis about Lydia Bennet alone getting discarded. Like
Right.
that is a cool topic. I my heart warms anytime someone I ask that question of is like, oh yeah, through my mom, because I really do think that a lot of people find Jane Austen through their mothers, and like it's a sweet like generational thing that passes down. And so it makes me happy to hear.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I've had so many guests say the same thing that it was like their mum, and I just feel like it's something that, in addition, kind of bonds us. Like not just Jane Austen, it's like the fact that your mum got you into it. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Aw, and I'm the opposite. I got my mom into it.
No way.
Because she listens to this podcast.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
it's still generational, just
Yeah,
reverse generational.
exactly.
yeah.
Second question would be what is your favorite piece of Austen content? This can range from a particular edition of a book itself, an adaptation, a song inspired by Jane Austen, whatever really like speaks to you the most.
I love that you said like it could be like an edition of a book. Oh, that's awesome. And that's not what I picked, but that's such a cool ad. Um, so I mean, I love all of the books. It's really hard for me to pick my favorite book. So I would say something that stands out, which is Austen content that I absolutely adore and rant and rave about on my own podcast all the time, is the I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, if you covered it, but the 2009 Emma that the BBC did.
Oh,
I love it.
yes. Romola Garai and Johnny Lee Miller.
So
Oh,
good. So good. That is how I read Emma. So when that one came out, I was like, oh, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And yeah, nothing's ever topped that for me. So that is my gold standard.
yeah, the first Emma to ever capture I'm gonna silo Cher from Clueless from the discussion, but I think other than Cher from Clueless, Romola Garai is the first portrayal of Emma to capture that she's not an evil person, but like
Yes.
just like so in her own world and her fancies that she is casually disregarding other people's feelings by accident.
Yes.
Like, very good.
I absolutely feel that too. Yeah, I hate when Emma's like considered this like really villainous person because I think that's such a like a misunderstanding of Emma. Like I think she's just a product of the fact that she's been brought up in this kind of like really small ecosystem that is Highbury, and I think that's just how her character's like developed. But I love that that one is more sympathetic to her character, and then you also see like the emotional turmoil she goes through. Like it actually is so distressing for her, and I love that scene where she's like so distressed about what she did to Miss Bates, and it's like this really dramatic turn of events for her. So yeah, I do love that one.
Yeah, also like I want Johnny Lee Miller to scold me like every day of my life.
And he's a volunteer firefighter in real life.
Ooh, no.
I was like, in Emma, I was
No,
like,
in real life, because he's perfect.
I mean, you could do that in Emma, and I totally believe it as well. I'm like, this fits Mr. Knightley's character, so it's fine.
Absolutely.
oh, wonderful. Question number 3. Which Austen character do you relate to the most? Before we go here, I will just say to give you context, Molly has yet to read Mansfield Park or Northanger Abbey. So if one of the characters from them is the character you relate to the most, just spoiler warning there.
Okay, perfect. Okay, no worries. This is such a hard question for me as well. It's so funny. They actually have at the moment, I don't know if it's still there, they have a board in Jane Austen's house where you can actually write down the answer to this question and stick it on a post-it note. And when I was there, I was filming a vlog, and one of the staff was helping me like get the contents and things. They were filming while I was doing it, and the pressure because I was like, I don't know the answer to this question. I ended up scrunching up one and like doing it again. So technically, the two that I picked because I couldn't choose between one was actually Emma. And the other was Jane Bennet. And this is actually because like I can't answer this question for myself, but my younger brother once said to me, he was like, you're kind of a bizarre combination of like Emma and Jane Bennet, if that's possible. So that's the thing that's resonated with me the most. I did have a listener recently say, "Oh, I actually think you're more of a Elizabeth Bennet," which sent me into like some sort of external crisis, which is so funny because a lot of people really want to be Lizzie. But I was like, "Whoa, what does this say about me?" And like, I was really like, it really bothered me. And the more I've sat with it, actually, the more I can see his point as well. Which I mean, this is like a roundabout way to answer your question. So I don't fully know. Maybe I need some more self-inquiry to like figure this out. But I don't think I quite fit into any of the characters. So I think elements of I have some elements of Jane and I have some elements of Emma, definitely more when I was younger. And I think as I'm growing up, I'm becoming more of a Lizzie Bennet for sure.
I love that. That deeply inquiring, like, panic of trying to figure out which one of them you are, though, is pretty Emma Woodhouse coded. Um,
Yeah.
so I will
So
take that
true.
answer because she would sit there and be like, "Which one?"
Which one is gonna be I've got to answer perfectly, like, I can't figure it out.
Exactly, and, like, canvassing everybody and, like, I could see her canvass everybody in Highbury and be like, "Which character do am I the most like? Tell me, and I will figure it out," and then being like, "That's not the right answer, but is it the right answer? I don't know." That's very
It
Emma.
That is
is.
exactly me, so
And our final question before we get into our film coverage is, what is your hottest Austen take?
oh, I love this question. I've done a few unpopular opinion episodes with multiple different ones, but I feel like this will be a spoiler, but I'll try and not because it's a Mansfield Park one that is actually my hottest one. But hopefully this doesn't ruin anything. I don't think it will. Um, oh, maybe it will. Can I not say it if it's a spoiler? Because I'm like, I don't want to. Should I pick a different one?
What I can do is I can take my headphones off and then I just won't edit that part.
Okay, okay, perfect. I'm so sorry. That's so complicated.
No,
No, no, no, you would not be the first one.
I want you to share it, so I'll go like this.
Okay, so my hot take or unpopular opinion is I feel like Edmund Bertram is essentially as big of as a villain as the rest of his like family members, and I don't think he deserved either Fanny or Mary. Like I genuinely think they shouldn't have, no one should be with him. Like I genuinely don't.
Hon
So
Honestly, I'm so happy with this take. We're gonna get into it when we do Mansfield Park, but Edmund Bertram, I have hinted at it like 8 or 9 times on this podcast. The love interest that Jane Austen picked for Fanny in Mansfield Park is an unhinged choice for like 8,000 different reasons. Half of them are his personality. And like I think that when that does roll around, I have and what for our listeners, like the behind the scenes is I do try to like go back into the books and try to figure out like how to talk about what Jane Austen might have been trying to get at with a character,
mm,
even if they're like not the right thing by some measure or something. So I am planning on rereading Mansfield Park before I discuss it with Molly so that I can sort of like gather my own thoughts on Edmund because he is like mayonnaise of a person and also snotty and also kind of in love with his cousin's sister, and it's weird. It's like everything's wrong.
the whole thing is so bizarre. And like I feel like sometimes people try and jump on, they're like, oh, he like really protects Fanny. No, no, he doesn't. Like
No,
the way
he
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 does it is
doesn't
argumentative, and she is so sensitive that I'm like, this must be so trauma inducing for Fanny. Like,
Are you familiar with bare minimum Twitter?
yes, I am. Not
So
Twitter,
so
but just the
Fanny
concept.
the Fanny is like a peak bare minimum Twitter, like just accepting the bare minimum of like he's polite and nice to me compared to everybody else who's like abusing me. And I'm like, girl, you no.
I
So
know.
I am on board with this hot take. I'm going to signal for Molly in the record session. Molly, this is where we're cutting off the spoilers, and I'm going to signal to you to put your headphones back on.
I was singing a song about how I'm singing so that I don't get spoiled.
Amazing. Our listeners are getting like a little preview of my Mansfield Park thoughts.
Exciting.
Oh my days. This would be totally difficult for you guys to do content wise, but it'd be so funny if you had people who like experienced it through like Molly's perspective and then like so it's just like you singing, you just there.
Well, I mean, our listeners are free to skip ahead in that portion as well.
Should I release 2 cuts of the episode?
One of them's like Molly's take. It'd be like the Taylor's version, but it's like
Yeah.
Molly's version.
Oh,
Oh
that's
my God.
funny. I think our patrons would like that, actually. I could do that.
Well, if you could find a way to make that work, I think it'll be very fun for them.
Yeah. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Well, okay, then I think we're ready to move into our coverage of the 2007/2008 Persuasion.
Yeah, to start before we like go beat by beat, should we just share our most initial thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, I think that this is going to be fun because based on a conversation Becca and I had recently, I think we had very different experiences of this film.
Yes,
Oh.
and I had not watched this one before, which is pretty rare for me when it comes to Jane Austen adaptations. So, I guess let's start with Izzy. Izzy, you
Yes.
can give your thoughts first, and then we'll go beat by beat from me and Molly. And either way, you will agree with one of us or disagree.
Yeah, I love that because there's two of you. Like, there's always going to be.
Exactly.
um, so I do really like this one, but I equally don't think there's any perfect Persuasion adaptation out there anyway. So I feel like I'm just saying this one's great because I don't have an alternative, if that makes sense. So this, for me, this is like the best of the bunch. But there are some hilarious moments in this that I can't wait to get to. So yeah, I'm really excited to cover it. But I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to say to all the listeners to start. I'm so sorry. I'm terrible with names, like of actors and things. So just pre-warning if I'm just there, like the person playing this person. But yeah, so I'm excited to do it, but I personally don't think there's any good Persuasion adaptation out there.
That's totally fair. I've only seen 2, but from general consensus, that seems to be what people think is that, like, none of them are actually that good or, like, don't, like, capture the heart of Persuasion. I loved this one. I thought it was great. Loved all the performances. I loved the music. I thought the cinematography was unhinged, but, like, I wasn't opposed to it. So overall, I would watch it again. I watched it twice, I'd watch it a third time.
Yeah, I agree pretty much entirely with Izzy on this one, and I don't totally disagree with either one of you because I really did enjoy watching this adaptation. I think it did confirm for me that we are lacking a really excellent adaptation of Persuasion because we also recently watched the 95, and in my brain the 95 has good points and bad points. I think the good kind of outweighs the bad, but it's overall serviceable. And I feel the same way about this, although I would say it's like exactly the opposite good and bad in a lot of ways. Like everything that was good about the 95 is not as great here, and everything that was bad about the 95 is amazing here. So, for example,
Mm.
I love the aesthetics of this movie. I love the energy of this movie. We watched the 95 adaptation, and my fiance Mike, who doesn't read the books, didn't understand the plot at all. He like could
Oh.
not follow what was happening. And he's not like enmeshed in the Jane Austen world, but he like this one is like built for people who haven't read the books. Like you could follow the plot of this story very easily. I do think there are some absolutely unhinged choices in terms of like swapping around things that really sing in the book and some really weird angles of the camera that are choices, but I do think that overall, an incredibly pleasurable hour and a half to spend in a Jane Austen world. So I think everyone comes out positive on this film overall, it sounds like.
Yeah.
It's just a
Yeah.
matter of how positive is really the answer.
Yeah, yeah. I actually love that analysis as well of like saying like actually if you hadn't read the book, would you be able to follow the plot? Because I actually thought that about I don't know if you guys have covered the newest one yet, the
Not yet.
Not
2022
yet.
one. At this point, spoil it, but just my personal opinion is that I think that people I personally thought when I watched that people wouldn't be able to gauge the plot of Persuasion from watching that. Like they can gauge the plot of whatever it was, but like I think they struggle to like gauge the plot of Persuasion.
Well, Molly and I both have partners who do not read Jane Austen novels, and basically, Mike listens to the podcast and like tries to suss out what's happening just through podcast listening because he doesn't do the read along. But Mike and Mel both will watch the movie with us, and we will let you know whether or not they followed anything that happened in the movie.
I will say that Mel sat there with me while I watched this, but she had her headphones in and was listening to an audiobook, so she didn't watch this one. She was like, "Well, I already saw Persuasion." And I was like, "Yeah, but this one's better." And she was like, "Well, Persuasion's not my favorite of the I've seen one of each book adaptation." And I was like, "Okay, what's your favorite?" And she said the 2008, 2009 Emma, which I was like, "Yeah, you know what? Same."
Kindred spirits.
And you know what? Mike's favorite was the 2020 Emma. I think we're spoiled with amounts of Emma adaptations, but Mike likes it because Mike's a very like vibe based film watcher. So that movie is all
Mm.
vibes in a fun way that he
Yes.
enjoyed. But if you really want to follow like the plot of how precisely that book translates to film and like the energy of that, that is the 2009 one for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I think we're spoiled with both Emma's and Pride and Prejudice, to be honest with you. Now we have another Pride and
Yes.
Yeah.
Prejudice coming out, so I'm a bit like,
Yep.
where is our good persuasion? Where is it?
Right.
Exactly.
Where's our miniseries?
This is our fourth Jane Austen book we've been covering, and the first three we did were Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, and Emma, all of which have stunning
Yeah.
adaptations. And Persuasion, when I found out, that there wasn't a mini series that had been made in the last 30 years of Persuasion, I was devastated. And also finding out that there was an adaptation that was in the works with Sarah Snook as Anne Elliot that got scrapped made me want to riot.
Yeah, literally spoke about this with someone the other day. Like, it's actually shocking. It's
Ugh,
shocking that then it got replaced by the Dakota Johnson. I
yeah.
just can't. I can't. I'm not going to spoil it for you guys. Like, I'm not going to spoil it for you, Molly. But it's like,
If the spoiler is that a lot of people don't care for the adaptation, that has been spoiled for us quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dive into talking about this movie that we all actually pretty much agree on. Although, like, I think I actually did think like it was pure. I purely enjoyed it without being like, oh, I don't think there's a good adaptation. I think this is a good adaptation. So maybe I'm a little bit more in the loving it camp, but I think we all agree on it pretty much.
yeah,
So okay, starting out, we get a shot directly head on Anne's face looking into the camera, which happens a lot in this movie. And we were in the watch party with our patrons. I was like, okay, if anyone's drinking, drink every time Anne looks directly into the camera like she's on The Office. That it cracks me up every single time. I love it. One of those unhinged choices.
Yeah.
Speaking of Anne, she's played by Sally Hawkins, whose birthday is today, the day we are recording this, April
oh,
27th.
happy birthday, Sally.
Happy birthday to Sally Hawkins.
I will say this, like, we just spent some time talking about things I might not have liked or, like, saying bemoaning the lack of Sarah Snook and Elliot. Sally Hawkins is an excellent Anne Elliot.
So good.
I don't know if either of you. This was such a rogue film that came out, and swear I watched it in like a tiny little cinema. I don't know how I even got tickets for it, but she actually did a film about the woman who found Richard III's bones. I don't know if you followed any of the story about like Richard III.
No, I saw that happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're Shakespeare geeks, so we followed the story, but I didn't know there was a film about it.
Yeah, I don't even know why this wasn't like publicized more. I don't know how I found this film, but it was like aired in like a cinema. But it's Sally plays the woman who found his bones. I really recommend watching it because I thought it was fantastic. Like, I don't think it's for everyone. Like, I took my boyfriend at the time, and I think he was a bit like, I'm not really feeling this. So like, I think you have to be a bit of like a history buff, but like, it's really good. Anyway, sorry, that was such a tangent.
Is it called The Lost King?
Potentially. I can't even remember what it was called. Honestly, I don't even know how I found this thing. I just like rocked up to the cinema. I was like, yes.
Great. I'm gonna look into that.
Molly, you and I can watch that together because our partners will not want to.
Yeah. We also forgot to mention that this is directed by Adrian Shergold and was released in 2007 in the UK and early 2008 in the US. So, Anne Elliot, played by Sally Hawkins, she also famously plays Kristen Stewart's like handmaid slash lover in Spencer, who's not like really her lover, but who's in love with Kristen Stewart.
Mm.
Anyway, so we love to get a little lesbianism in there. So Anne is walking around taking inventory of everything in the house. And I loved there's a woman whose job it is to just stand there with an inkwell in the hallway, and Anne walks past and dips her quill so that she can write something down, and the woman's just standing there like this with her hands out.
Yeah. Can we talk about how serious just Anne is for this whole intense moment as well? Like, she is running around like she's
Oh,
taking inventory for like IKEA or something. Like, it's intense. Like, every time I watch it, I'm just like, what is going
yeah,
on?
she's not messing around.
Yeah, we really jump right in with like the drama. There's no kind of lead up to the house is being let and they're like leaving.
And it's really interesting because I think Sally Hawkins does like a really good job of being like as morose as Anne always is
Mm.
throughout Persuasion, but doing so without coming off as a sad sack, which is actually really hard.
Yeah. She's got the facial expressions down to a T.
Yeah, I feel like if you just watch the opening scene though, sometimes I'm like, she looks a little bit confused. Like, she doesn't quite know what's like happening, which I don't know if that was like like meant to be the case. But sometimes when I'm watching it, I'm like, what we're all confused right now. What's happening? This seems like a fast pace, which I think we see throughout, which we'll get into. But I think, yeah, something that I like is it does set the pace for the rest of the film.
Yeah, and we start out really strong actually with the shaky cam,
Yeah.
which comes back in the worst way later on, but like right now it's like shaking and following her down the staircase as she's running through the house with her notepad and everything.
That's actually now become super popular, like, in terms of, like, a a filming style. I don't know if either of you watched Adolescence,
Not
but
yet.
because they filmed it like as one shot, like a lot of like every single episode was like a one shot thing. This kind of like more rustic, like raw take is actually so popular at the moment. So I actually think this Persuasion might have a bit of a revival because of that.
I hope so because I loved this movie. So Lady Russell arrives and we get some nice exposition because she comes in and she's like, I had no idea it had gotten so bad. And Anne explains that they're having to leave and she had convinced her father that he needed to rent the house out to someone. They're not going to sell it, they're not going to retrench, but they will rent. And so Lady Russell's like, well, where will you go next? And Anne is like, I would rather stay here, but Father and Elizabeth have settled on Bath. And she says it with such a little sad smile. And Lady Russell's like, I thought you hated Bath. And Anne's like, well, you know.
Not my call.
Yeah. So we go outside, and the Elliots are just having a walk because they leave everything to Anne. And Elizabeth Elliot is wearing a Caroline Bingley dress from the 1995 Pride and Prejudice, the green one with the
Mm.
stripes, that she actually wears twice in this film, just to show she doesn't have that many nice things.
Elizabeth Elliot, you are an outfit repeater.
She is an outfit repeater. And Mr. Elliot, Daddy Elliot,
Sir Walter.
Sir Walter Elliot, Anthony Head, aka Rupert from Ted Lasso.
No, I mean Giles from Buffy. I mean, he's also Uther Pendragon from Merlin. But this is just something that was revealed about me when we watched the 95 is that I can pull a Merlin actor out of my brain from the ethers that existed there from watching that show obsessively a decade ago. But I am a lifelong hardcore Buffy fan. So when I see Anthony Head, I see Rupert Giles, except that he plays a villain in everything else he does. So he's mean in everything except his number one role, in which he is Rupert Giles, the dad, librarian, fussy watcher that takes care of Buffy as her father figure.
Oh, I love that for him. He definitely gives villain in this for sure. He's definitely villain.
Yeah.
He almost always plays like a ruthlessly mean character. And in Merlin, he plays Arthur, King Arthur's dad, who spends all of his time killing wizards and yelling about sorcery. It was like a meme online for like 1,000 years. I can't believe how much I'm talking about the show Merlin.
He's also in the 2006 classic Imagine Me and You, and he plays the father of one of the brides. So it's a lesbian 2006 lesbian rom-com, which like ahead of its time. And he plays the dad of the woman who's getting married, and like she's like, oh no, I'm in love with this woman that I met at the flower shop. And I think I've only seen it once, but I think he ends up being supportive, so he's not always a villain.
We love that.
That's good. In Buffy, he's very supportive to a character whom I will not disclose, who comes out as gay halfway through the series. So
Becca has high hopes that I'm gonna watch Buffy one day.
yeah, I did force Mike to watch the entire thing, and it is mixed in how well it has aged. But the thing that has aged the weirdest for me is that nowadays Rupert Giles in Buffy is actually kind of hot, which brings us to the fact that Sir Walter in this Persuasion is pretty hot.
Yeah.
Do you think? Oh my days.
Yeah.
That's so funny. That did not click for me at all. I've got to be honest.
That's
Like,
so
of all the
funny.
characters, like, he wasn't the one standing out, but I respect your choices.
I feel like a lot of the actors are very good looking in this adaptation, but I do like one of the disturbing things about hitting 30 for me was like the fact that now Anthony Head is kind of a babe to me, which was never the case when I was younger.
I famously have a thing for the father figures in Jane Austen adaptations. I don't know what it is. The dads.
The dads.
They do it for me. I don't know. And this one in particular, like I thought he was hot in Ted Lasso, and I think he's hot here. It's the crinkle around the eyes, but he's so evil. So we don't like him.
Yeah.
Mr. Shepherd and Mrs. Clay are also there, and Anne and Lady Russell quietly whisper, for the benefit of the audience, that Mrs. Clay's husband recently died, and she's been spending a lot of time with the Elliots lately, and then they share a knowing look. And then Shepherd says that he's found an admiral to take the house. And Sir Walter is pissed.
When he tells him that and, like, Sir Walter, like, turns around, like, super quickly. I love that moment. I'm like, it's so dramatic, and I'm kind of here for it.
Ugh.
He's so dramatic. He's a drama king. And he is eventually convinced by everyone, including specifically Mrs. Clay, who kind of bats her eyelashes and flirts with him, that he should let the Admiral stay there. Then when Anne hears the name Croft, as in the Admiral, she jumps and everyone looks at her and they're like, "Oh, are you acquainted with the Crofts?" And she goes, "Yes, no, I'm familiar with his career." And then she turns around and runs away. She's like, "I must go, much to do."
What a comment.
Yes.
I'm familiar with his career. Like, what kind of comment is that?
Like that, first of all, Anne, that's not the cover up that you think it is because that shows that you're like following the Navy.
Have you guys ever had a moment where someone accidentally reveals that they have looked heavily at your social media?
This was, like, years and years ago because I was, like, in college, like, sixth form at the time, and I had someone it was actually kinda sweet, but at the same time, it was also like, "You mean stalking me?" Um, like, my favorite band is the Wombats. I don't know if you guys know them. Not know them personally. I don't know if you guys have been, like, having brunch with them or whatever.
Yeah, we're best friends.
But yeah, so, like, they had, like, a new album out, and, like, I hadn't told him that I liked this band or whatever but I'd seen them and, like, I had posts, like, on my social media and stuff, but he didn't wasn't on my I don't know if I, like, had him on social media or anything, or maybe I did, but he bought me, like, the CD like, out of the blue, like, randomly. This was just, like, a guy I was, like, friends with or what have you. And I was like, "Oh, that's, like, nice. That's very, like, you're definitely doing your research on me. Like, thank you." But, yeah, that's
So
the only
thoughtful.
time that I know, it's so thoughtful, yeah. I wasn't actually interested in him, so it's such a shame, but I was literally just like, "Oh, I appreciate the, doing, like, background on me. Like, that's fine."
It's at least very thoughtful, courting from
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
So that's nice. But here, Anne is exposing herself as having stalked Wentworth's social media for years, which we have all been there. But she covers. I don't want to say she covers well. She covers in a mediocre manner and runs away.
Yes, and Lady Russell follows her into, like, her bedroom, and she says, "Who is Admiral Croft to you?" And she goes, "Admiral Croft's wife is," and she trails off, and Lady Russell goes, "Mrs. Croft," and she goes, "Yes," which I think is so funny. Admiral Croft's wife is Mrs. Croft. Yes, and then she says, "And her brother is Captain Frederick Wentworth." Dun, dun, dun.
Ooh, shocking.
Jump scare.
Yeah. And immediately, Lady Russell, they get into this conversation, and Lady Russell defends the decision from 8 years ago, saying, "You know, your father would never have allowed it, an alliance he deemed so degrading." And Anne comes back with the absolute zinger. He was not alone, as I recall.
I know the shade in that moment. I was like, "Oh,
Mm.
that's so embarrassing."
Yeah. And Lady Russell says she would have been throwing herself away to become engaged so young to a naval officer with no fortunes in the middle of a war. Like, he could have died. But she clearly hates to see Anne in so much pain. Like, there is a lot of love in this relationship. And that's true in the book. And that's been true in the adaptation so far. And I feel like reading the book, I had a much less sympathetic view on Lady Russell than I have watching the movies.
They always pick some really fantastic older British actress to play Lady Russell who makes you instantly love her.
Yeah, yeah. Although I was slating the newer Persuasion earlier, like I actually love the person, like the portrayal of Lady Russell in that adaptation. So that's like, there were some like really good elements of it. Um,
Not someone giving a compliment to the
if
2022
it's
adaptation of
cancel
Persuasion.
me, cancel me. It's fine. But yeah, no, I agree. This one seems very sympathetic. I think the book version leans more not to the extreme of Mrs. Norris, but has more Mrs. Norris tendencies. I think feel like book Miss Lady Russell has compared to like film. I think they always soften her, and I think for good reason because I feel like everyone would be so confused why and listen to either of them if like you're in a film version. I feel like you have to be a little bit more lenient with that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Anne says, well, he might have been imprudent match at the time, but he's extremely wealthy now. And Lady Russell says, oh, has he written to you? And Anne says, no. And Lady Russell says, okay, well, if he had been sincere, wouldn't he have contacted you when his circumstances changed? And Anne just kind of sadly shakes her head and says she doesn't blame Lady Russell, but she thinks very differently now from what she had when she was persuaded to think something differently 8 years ago.
And she says persuaded out loud.
Yes, she says the titular line, and then Lady Russell says, "Well, you'll find someone one day." And Anne says, "I'm 27." And in our minds, we all went, "I'm 27 years old. I've no money, no prospects,
I'm already a burden to my parents.
and I'm frightened."
This is such a jump back, sorry, to what you said before when she says, like, if he, like, basically, like, if he liked you, wouldn't he have contacted you? I didn't know about anyone else, but that was such a gut punch when I hear her say that in this. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's something she doesn't say in the book.
I totally agree because that means she still thinks he's a gold digger, which I mean, it's one thing to think it's an imprudent match. It's another thing to think his motives were insincere. Like,
Yeah. I hadn't even thought of that, actually.
And that there's some, like, something with Anne that she's, like, incapable of having these, like, proper thoughts herself, that she can discern if somebody's trying to deceive her. Like, it's literally, you can't think this for yourself. We have to tell you, like, obviously, he would have contacted you if he liked you. Like, Anne's just there like, "Ow."
that actually is a really good point because it also makes me think of what happens later in the story when Mr. Elliot is actually trying to get to Anne for her status and her title.
And Anne gets it. She can tell.
And Lady Russell can't.
Right.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Growth.
Growth. So at dinner, Sir Walter invites Mrs. Clay to come to Bath with them. And that's when Lady Russell's like, well, isn't Anne company enough? And Elizabeth reveals that Anne's not coming. Anne's going to Sister Mary in Uppercross. And she's giving such evil stepsister vibes in this. Like her curly wig, her like eating whatever she's eating with her hands and being so smug about it. It's just like very evil stepsister in Cinderella. And then Anne goes upstairs and looks through her breakup box and looks at her bundle of letters from Wentworth and is sad.
Not the breakup box.
Yeah.
Do either of you have an example of that? Like, where you've kept stuff like that and you're like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So my high school boyfriend, I had a box that had my like promise ring that said I know, I think his said I love you and mine said I know, like because we're big nerds, Star Wars nerds.
Geeks, yeah.
And then, like, a cup that had a bunch of hearts on it and a teddy bear that he had, like, won me from a Valentine's Day raffle and some, like, birthday cards and whatever. Like, I had this box. And my mom, when she was cleaning out the closet, like, took the cup and she was like, I'm gonna use this as a water cup. So that's, like, still in my mom's house.
Stop.
Yeah, I think everything else is probably gone by now. I think maybe the ring got lost somewhere. Anyway, it's like so corny, but I had that for years and years in my closet. It was just like even after I was way over it, it was just like in my closet somewhere.
And your mum was like, practical gifts. I will be
Yeah,
using this.
exactly. And I think probably she gave the stuffed animal to the dog. Come to think of it. Yeah.
I love that your mom found your breakup box and was like, amazing. New stuff to use.
Well, I'm sure she asked me, she was like, does this have any emotional meaning to you? And I was like, no.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I do not have a breakup box.
You don't have a
but
single breakup box?
No, I have breakup playlists.
Right.
Oh, oh my gosh, that is deep.
Yeah, that's how I processed. This never a stuff thing. It was always a what music really perfectly captures just how miserable I am in this moment. Big on the sad girl
You
music.
just like rename them, just like their name or something.
Oh no, it's always like a covert name. I've talked many times about having an ice cream playlist, which is my like standard breakup playlist, like your generic, like these are the sad songs that work in most scenarios. But like you hear from an old ex years later, like, okay, I need to know like the Joan Baez for that one. Oh, it just happened. Oh, this is a time for like Turning Tables by Adele. I want him to feel really bad about like having left me behind, it's gonna be Little Lion Man from Mumford and Sons, like that level of drama from me.
Becca, if you bring up your breakup playlist too much, people are gonna ask you to release it to the public.
No, I can't do it. It's like literally like publishing journal
I
pages.
was literally gonna say, I was like, next time I break up with someone, I'm just gonna come to you and be like, hit me up with the list. Like, what is the
Yeah.
list that I need in this moment?
Do you have a breakup box, Izzy?
Not really. Like, I to be fair, it's like years have passed, I've become, like, less sentimental about that kind of thing, so I'm a little bit more ruthless, like, I genuinely just, like, get rid of things. But,
Nice.
Good.
but something I kept on to for years was, like, my high school diaries. Oh, my days. Like, I mean, thank God I got rid of them now because, like, I used to think I was like, in the future, like, I'm gonna, like, publish these and everybody's gonna read them, and I'm like, "What the hell was
I
I
thought that
thinking?"
too.
Like,
That
they these and anyway, I had to, like, destroy them because I had this, like, really bizarre, like, fixation on them where I'd, like, go back and read them and, like, bawl my eyes out, so I was like, "They need to go. They need to go." There's an unhealthy connection to these diaries, so, yeah, I had, like, loads of them because I used to, like, religiously write in them, so, yeah, they had to go. So my advice to Anne would be definitely burn the letters, like,
Mhm.
let it go. What is meant for you will find you.
I have to agree with that, like, it's been 8 years. I know it's romantic, whatever, but, like, it has been 8 years. So
Well, the story would not occur if either Anne or Wentworth had any capacity to get the fuck over it. So
yeah, true. So the family leaves, and Elizabeth, as they're leaving, tells Anne to make sure she goes around and takes the family's leave of everyone in town. And Anne is like, ugh, whatever. And she goes upstairs, she starts journaling. And the journaling is our way of kind of narrating her thoughts, which I'm not mad about.
for a character as internal as Anne Elliot, it's very difficult to capture her internal monologue that we live with in the book.
Yeah.
And it is a pretty common trope in Jane Austen adaptations to have the girl journal to get her internal monologue. But I'm not mad at it, particularly in a case here where like Anne is a character that keeps things off her face. And I talked about this as a criticism of Amanda Root's performance in the 95 is that instead of having her internal monologue, we have her bug eyes
Yeah.
at
But
all these specific moments.
I think that Sally Hawkins has more range of facial expression, like more range of emotion on her face than Amanda Root did, and yet manages to be subtler. Like she's so good as Anne.
That's exactly what I mean is that like we see her like the emotion play up and then her smush it down so no one can see it.
Mm.
And that little smile that she does where she's sad in the eyes, but she'll smile anyway. It's
Oh, yeah.
chef's kiss.
That is
Yeah.
so sad. That is true. I mean, I actually don't mind the fact that she does like the journaling and that's how we see. I mean, I find it a little bit cringy, but equally, I'm like you were saying, how else do we have Anne's internal monologue? And I think
Yeah.
that's probably one of the pitfalls of turning Persuasion into a screenplay. Is like, how do you actually translate it? Like, it's not like Pride and Prejudice with such a solid plot that it's like so easy to put it to screen. So,
Yeah.
how else would you do it? Like, sometimes I question this. I'm like, what would be the best way to show that?
Well, since you're asking, my take of what I would do if I were making an adaptation of Persuasion is I would make it a mini series. And what I would do is I would start with some flashbacks.
Flashbacks.
So you see what Wentworth means to Anne, so that when she's making those facial expressions throughout the film, it's based in the context of the what the joy was and the love was they had together that we witnessed. And then it makes it all the loss feel more concrete and you have more time to like stretch it out because Persuasion is a shorter book than the others. So you have wiggle room to add in some of the context that's given to us in the book through narrative, beautiful language from Jane Austen, some of her most beautiful language about the way in which their souls were intertwined. Like that captures it for us in the book. To do it in the movie, I would show instead of telling personally,
Yeah.
but no one's made a miniseries of Persuasion yet. But that's how I would do it.
I would also use flashbacks, but I think they'd have to be like I wouldn't want really obvious flashbacks personally. Like I'd want like kind of like shadowy, like you can kind of see what's going on kind of thing. And that would
Mhm.
I agree. I think flashbacks would work so well. It
Yeah.
would be so hard hitting because in the book you get the essence of what they had in the past, and that's why you also feel so passionately they should still be together.
Yeah.
But I also agree that it's some of Austen's best written work. I say that all the time. I think this is her best written work. I almost feel like I say this all the time as well, but I almost feel like it's her like final love letter to everyone, where she's literally like,
Mm.
it is worth holding out for true love. Like, I think she's like, you know what? We've gone on this whole journey. I'm dying, but this is my love letter to you all. Like, do hold out. And also, I think it kind of resonates with her writing as well. She didn't have the success that she deserved in her lifetime, and I think part of her was like, it's worth holding out for though. Like, it was worth it for me to do all this writing because I loved it, and like, yeah.
Yeah. Writing is her one true love.
That made me feel so emotional that I'm gonna go listen to Brandy Carlisle's Letter to the Past after this.
uh, so she's journaling and she's wondering if Wentworth is going to come to the house married with a wife and children. And then she looks straight into the camera. As Anne pulls away from the house, the Crofts pull up, and Mr. Croft is played by Mr. Gardner from the 2005 Pride and Prejudice, which I had just watched like a couple days before watching this. So I was very excited by that. I love him. The Crofts look around and they are in this room, and Mrs. Croft says that this room will do nicely for Frederick. And the Admiral's like, well, he seemed pretty set against the idea of Kellynch. And Mrs. Croft says, yes, well, the area holds bad memories for him. He was once engaged to a girl here 8 years ago and had his heart broken. So this is the adaptation where everyone knows that something happened. Which again, like you kind of have to do in an adaptation, I think.
Yeah, here it makes sense for a lot of reasons, but Wentworth apparently has no chill and has told everyone that some girl in Kellynch just broke his heart years ago.
Yeah, do we think he wanted to turn everyone against her?
No, I think that Wentworth's feelings were spilling over so much that he had to tell everyone what he was feeling.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think he is a bit sassy, which I actually love that this adaptation pulls out, and something that I disliked about the newer one. I think Wentworth actually has like so much sass about him. And I think part of it would have just been that he was like, I want to spin my, well, not spin, but I want to tell my narrative because like it's important to me that everyone understands it from my perspective that I am brokenhearted. Like, I think he would want to control the narrative personally, like especially at this point. Like later on, I think he like softens a bit and he's actually like, well, I'm being a bit of a div. But yeah, I think earlier on he's like, I must tell everybody my side of the story.
I agree. And I love this Wentworth as well, which we'll get into when we meet him. So Anne goes to Uppercross and we meet Mary, who is more ill than she's ever been in her life. She's been more ill than she's been in her life all morning, all this very long morning when Charles has been out. And she complains that the Musgroves haven't come to see her. And of course, at that point, the Musgrove girls come running up. And when she opens the door, they run straight past her to Anne and tell her that they have very exciting news. Just a moment for Mary. This Mary, I'm obsessed with her.
I like this Mary. I don't find her quite as funny as the 95 Mary was for me.
I think that she might be funnier because she's so over the top.
She is. And she is a different character a little because she's like kind of a dork and mad about being a dork. It's like a little bit more of a modern funny. Like she's not just a particular prim and proper. She's like they give Mary like negative riz
Yes.
and make her like unappealing. Like, and the actress who plays her is beautiful, but like the performance is so like snorts while laughs sort of vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've ever seen like a bad portrayal of Mary. Like when I was reading Persuasion, I always thought she'd be like such a hard character to play. But then I'm also like I've just seen like excellent portrayals of her, so I've never been sad with the Mary portrayals. But I also do like this one. She's like so dislikable, and I think that's perfect.
One of my hot Austen takes that has come into fruition since we covered Persuasion is that I think Mary Musgrove is a work of absolute genius from Jane Austen. Every single word penned for Mary Musgrove is perfectly like just designed to make me laugh personally. Like it is so funny.
Yeah. She's hilarious.
As well, like I don't know like how much of like Jane Austen's like personal family background that you know about as well. That was actually like her brother married one of her brothers married someone called Mary who seems to have like quite similar characteristics as well. So I think like when like I can imagine there was like a bit of shade around the fact that that this character is called Mary. I mean, she's really happy that she like kind of pops her clocks after she's like, "This is my final work. Bye." Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
God.
yeah. Wait, that's so funny because there's also Mary in Pride and Prejudice who is like,
Who's the stick in the mud?
yeah, very different character, but like equally as kind of nobody likes her.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
Very interesting.
interesting.
Just given characters named Mary that Jane Austen has written through the years.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah. So Anne goes to the great house with Mary and the Miss Musgroves. And Mrs. Musgrove is like, "Oh, you're so pale and drawn. We must fatten you up." And Mary in the background goes, "I myself have been very unwell." And everyone just ignores her. It's kind of sad actually, but I love it.
Nothing drives me up the wall more though than people who do that. Like you tell them a story and then they've got that story but 10 times more intense.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I had this terrible experience at the shop the other day, and they're like, well, I had the most terrible experience every time I go to the shop, and it's like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'll never forget. I was in the 5th grade and my friend and I carpooled and she came over in the morning and she was like, "How was your weekend?" And I was like, "Oh, I did this, this, and this, and it was good." And then she goes, "Aren't you going to ask me how my weekend was?" And I was like, "How was your weekend?" And she was like, "Well, I hung out with this person and this person and this person." Like, because she specifically wanted me to know that they hung out without me.
stop, no,
I'll never forget 5th grade. That was what, like 25 years ago or something? How old was I in 5th grade? 20 years ago? Anyway,
scars. I can
yeah.
totally get it. Yeah, I'll have nightmares
Thank
about
you.
that for sure.
So Charles and Mr. Musgrove enter with the kids, and I have to say, Charles is hot. I feel like he's never described as being hot, but he is. And Mary asks Charles if he's asked his father, I think for money, and he says his father has other uses for his money and it's his money, like he can do with it what he wants. And I forgot that that was a thing from the book that Charles and Mary were like struggling for money a little bit.
It's not that they're struggling for money. It's more that like Charles is a trust fund baby and he hasn't gotten to live like the luxurious lifestyle he will soon be able to live. Right now, he's living like on a more modest trust fund, but like is destined to be very wealthy.
And Mary's being a little greedy.
Mary's impatient to be very wealthy. She wants to be wealthy sooner rather than later. Instead, she's currently living in like kind of a upper middle class lifestyle with Charles. Also, maybe I picked up the wrong vibe from this. Is this Mary pregnant? Like, there are a couple of things she says about her condition through the movie that make me wonder whether or not they had
Oh.
her with baby number 3, but maybe I was reading into it too much.
She might be. I was taking that to be like because she's ill and frail,
It's possible.
but could be.
Yeah, they tend to not be too explicit in any adaptation about like people who are pregnant. Like I always think that about like Mrs. Weston and stuff. Like everyone's just like your condition. Like be careful in your condition.
Right. And then all of a sudden there's a baby.
Yeah, yeah. What's interesting as well, that thing about like Mary like pushing for, her husband's family to give more money. That's actually exactly what happened with Austen's sibling and like the Mary that he married. That's why they ended up moving to Bath, because they were essentially like pushed out because they wanted like the bigger house and stuff. So I do think there's a lot of shade that Austen's throwing in this one.
Yeah, and a lot of, like, self-insert. So, did we talk about this, that we felt like this was it you, Becca, that said you felt like this was the character that Austen put the most of herself into, or was that someone else?
Yeah, it felt like it's because of like the way she wrote about love in this one and the way she wrote about Anne. I do think like there's Jane Austen considered herself a little bit more of a scoundrel than Anne Elliot ever was. But I'm speculating here. No one has confirmed this, but there is something to this one that makes me feel like she's writing from experience of lost love.
Mhm.
Just because it feels so authentic. And I mean, she's an incredible master with her pen, so she can write that experience authentically if she didn't live it. But it feels more self-inserty because it's like an quote older woman who is unmarried with an older sister who's also unmarried, set in Bath, which she hates, and also I think with family members that are in and out of the Navy, she's close to. So there's just elements of Anne that I feel like feel more personal to Jane Austen than some of her other heroines.
I did do a full episode on busting the misconceptions of Jane Austen hating Bath.
Oh,
I do think she grew tired of the city, but I think like her main struggle was like her dad died while she was there. But
yeah.
I know like a lot of people do have this idea that like Anne Elliot is the closest to Austen. I don't know if I've ever felt that personally, but I think there's a lot of arguments, like you said, that she's put a lot of her own life into this. And if you're writing something, and you're dying. Like I can imagine that you're like, I want to get some stuff off my chest.
But what you said makes me even more sure that that's somewhat authentic, the hatred of Bath, because the reason Anne hates Bath is because it's where she was when her mom was dying.
Oh,
Mm.
Like,
yeah.
when she was in mourning, like, her school days near Bath, like, that's why it felt bad to her.
Yeah, I love this angle.
How soon after this book was published, or sorry, not after this book was published, but how soon after she wrote this book did Jane Austen die?
Quite soon,
Yeah,
right?
pretty soon. She actually I'm pretty sure there's, like, 2 endings, obviously, to, like, Persuasion and stuff, so,
Yeah.
like, she was, like I'm pretty sure it was, like, penned down couple of days kind of I mean, I don't know that for sure, but, like, this, yeah, it was very much and her, like, making, like, final edits, like, Northanger Abbey as well, like, I think it was all it like this a similar time. It was like there's actually like I think there's letters where like Cassandra was saying like that Jane was like still there with a pen like from her bed.
Wow. Okay, so just for the record, for our listeners, at one point when we were either reading this or when we were covering the last film, I said that this was like an end of life book, and I don't know if it was Becca or one of our guests. They were like, "It's not an end of life book. It's still like a rom com, like whatever." And I was like, "I just want to flag that I was right.
Yeah,
Thank you."
it's the most melancholy, right? It's got darker
Oh,
tones.
yeah. And it's reflective too.
Yeah,
It's like a lot about regret and remorse and keeping and Anne gets a happy ending, obviously,
Yes.
but what I'm reading into it is like an authentic feeling of remorse and loss in the book that feels personal to Jane.
yeah, and contemplation of soul as well. Like we can't forget the fact that Jane Austen was like heavily religious as well. So like I feel there's a lot of reflection on soul and what that means and what it actually means to like love
Mhm.
someone unconditionally. And I think all of that is very like reflective of like end of life as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the Miss Musgroves are excited to tell Anne that Mrs. Croft's brother, Wentworth, the naval officer, is coming to stay, and he is the most handsome and most unattached man in the Navy. And Mr. Musgrove is like, "Oh, well, you shall see for yourselves when he comes to dine tomorrow." And the way everyone gets so excited about this is very reminiscent of the beginning of Pride and Prejudice when they're like, Netherfield Park has been let, and it's been let by a handsome single man. Like, we have to go see him. And then Mr. Bennett goes and is like, okay, he's gonna be at the party, blah, blah, blah. I've already invited him over, blah, blah, blah. And so like they're giving that like youthful excitement. And I love that. I think it gives them more personality than I've seen from them. And also gives a very clear storyline for the Musgrove girls fighting for Wentworth's affections, where we may in other adaptations have had to like infer it. And in the book, at least for me, I had to infer it. And then it was like, oh, everyone's talking about it. But I thought this was a really good way to set that up.
And it leads to this, like, shot of them running to Uppercross, and I loved that shot, particularly where they pan out over the field and you see Henrietta and Louisa and all their, like, giggly, cherubic youth running towards their home to, like, go meet a handsome naval officer. It feels very girlhood. It feels very, like, beautiful country living in the Austen world, like, those moments of, like, comforting joy that Jane Austen brings in. I feel like Persuasion gets fewer of those, but I loved that, like, little shot. It felt very cozy to
Yeah,
me.
it was so light and colorful as well. I feel like it shows, but it also
Yeah.
I feel like it shows like a quite depressing contrast to like Anne, who's like in this like life's kind of going downhill for her, whereas like Louisa and Henrietta seem to be like in their bloom and everything. Like we
Yeah.
know obviously Anne like comes out the other side of it and finds her bloom again, but I think it's just like good to see the contrast. Like they have like so much hope about life still and love and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also contrast Kellynch very well with Uppercross because, like, Kellynch is so dour and sad and dark,
Yeah.
and Uppercross is lively and bright and filled with life.
Yes. So Anne is trying to pick an outfit that night to meet Wentworth. And she hears Mr. Musgrove yelling outside for Charles, and she looks out the window and she sees him carrying little Charles in his arms. And I just wanted to flag the candlelight in this scene being very disorienting because, like, it's all candlelight, right? Like, and the light in every other scene is pretty steady, but for some reason in this scene, it's just like strobing. Very unhinged choice.
I found this scene so jarring. Every single time I watch it, I almost forget what's about to happen because it makes me panic a little bit because I'm watching it, I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god, what's happened?" Like, and then, like, even though I know, like, I kind of forget because it's so intense with the candlelight and everything, like you say.
Yeah, I think they definitely did that on purpose to, like, pull us out of it. Now, this adaptation makes the choice to have Anne snap baby Charles's collarbone back into place instead of calling a doctor.
Very strange choice.
Actually, on first watch, I thought it was weird. On second watch, I thought, oh, this is a foreshadow for like how she can handle panicky situations and just like keep a cool head on. And she's like, no, we don't need a doctor. Watch this. But it is gross.
As Mary, like, gags in the corner.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like they have less time to kind of show that like Anne's really competent because I feel like it could be so jarring if we don't see anything and then suddenly she's like nursemaid. Like, like second part of the film or what have you, like she's there and she's got all this skill set and we're like, where's this come from? So yeah, I kind of appreciate that.
Yeah. Then Mary and Charles argue about who is going to stay with the child. And Anne's like, just go. I'll take care of it. And while they all talk about how it's gonna be settled then, like how she's gonna stay, they're gonna go, the camera's just focused on her face, and she just glances up and looks directly at us once more. I just have to call it out every time.
Would you prefer to go or stay? Because I would prefer to stay as well. I would be like, oh, I've got out of this. That's fine. Because like this, I can't deal with the anxiety.
I think in this case, I would prefer to stay just because, like, I would have wanted to go to see Wentworth again because obviously I'm still in love with him, right? But because there's been an emergency, I think I would be too preoccupied and I would want all of my wits about me to actually get to see Wentworth. So, like, knowing that I don't have my wits about me, I would rather stay.
Yeah, I think that there is a quality of like I have a job that like has really crazy hours, and so I have been in situations where there is something plaguing me at home. It's not a child in injury or anything, but something that I need to get done at home that's like on my mind. And sometimes if I have social plans that are making me anxious, it's like borderline impossible to like reconcile the two. So sometimes I'm like, I can't go to these social plans because I have to like do like 3 hours of work and it's gonna bother me if I'm out at these social plans and it's not done. And so I'll do the work and like it'll suck because there were things I wanted to do at the social plans, but they would have been anxiety inducing regardless. And it makes me feel better not only to have like dealt with the thing that was causing an extra anxiety, but also to have avoided another anxiety. So like I get this from Anne. It feels authentic to what I would do in the situation.
Oh, I love that your like reflections are like so much more mature than what mine was more like. I must avoid this situation. Like I'm so grateful that this has come up, even though I'm really sad for little Henry, little Charles, whatever. Like I'm really happy for him, like that he's gonna get better now. But like also, I wouldn't want to be in that situation. I feel like I need time to compose myself more. And if I was freaking out about my outfit choice, I'd be like, I'm not in the right headspace to go and see this person
Yeah.
yet. Like I need more
Oh,
time.
make no mistake, if I could control having the light shine on my face at a perfect angle every time I saw an ex and was like, "Oh, hello, toss, toss. Have you heard about my successful Jane Austen podcast? Toss, toss." Then that would be ideal. And I've said this many times on the podcast. Our listeners have gotten a like glimpse into how petty I can be, but it's my exes can be happy as long as I'm just a little happier than them. And if I'm doing badly in life and I have to see someone who I've had some former relationship with, like, even if I don't have a bad relationship with them, it's like, I can't do this because I need to be like a certain level of like together before I see somebody to not be low status in the situation.
That's so even if I was doing, like, really well, I would just also just be like, "I can't." I maybe I'm just, like, a bit of an avoidant, I don't know, but I just feel like, "I need to just stay here, this is great, I'm just not I'm gonna avoid this situation." That's so bad, maybe I should do something about that.
I will say that, like, reading the book, I read Anne as being super relieved to not have to go. This Anne is, like, she's giving sad about it and relieved about it at the same time. Like, she seems kind of resigned to her state at this point.
Yeah, you buy the longing to see him just one more time out of every like pore of her body.
Yes. So the next morning, Henrietta and Louisa come in and they're so excited. They're like, "Oh my god, it was such a fun party. Wentworth is so hot, blah, blah, blah." And who should walk in but Captain Wentworth. And of course, he's blonde. We've talked about blonde Austen heroes in the last one, because who was blonde in the last one?
Mr. Elliot was blonde in the last one.
Yeah. Our guests were like, oh, like, we picture Wentworth as tall, dark, and handsome, and they didn't.
So as a general rule, it is a phenomenon on the internet, particularly through book talk, that leading men in romances must have dark hair. Blonde men are not of interest. This is like a trend on the internet, one I personally disagree with. I think that with blonde hair, men with red hair, men with all types of hair can be gorgeous and wonderful leads in romances. But this is like a specific like thing on the internet that like blonde heroes are kind of blah compared to dark, twisty like heroes and everything.
But you know what? Knightley in the 2020 Emma is blonde, and
Mhm.
he's so hot
Yes, he is.
and dark and handsome, like, at the same time, and
Yeah.
then same with this Wentworth. In fact, I much prefer him to Kieran Hines, no offense to Kieran Hines, but, like, he's so much more age appropriate.
I disagree.
What?
I like a blonde Wentworth. Like, that's not the problem. Nothing has to do with his looks. I was not keen on this Wentworth,
Sorry, I
personally.
gotta go.
I am so sorry.
I love Rupert Penry Jones's Wentworth. Like, I actually am not interested. Like, I don't go for blondes either. Like, even though I am blonde, like I don't know what that's about. Yeah, like I do go for this, like like dark hair. But I really like him in this, and he's the only person. Like, you guys have named multiple people you find hot, but like he's the only one for me, I think, in this.
He is definitely hot. That is no question, and he and, Sally Hawkins do have a really good chemistry. The thing I was, like, not as keen on with him, even though, like, I think there are good things about his performance, I found him so severe and so killjoy through so much of the movie, and I wanted a little bit more vibrancy out of him, which is something that like Kieran Hines was not the type of Wentworth I personally pictured when I read the book, but I did enjoy his performance quite a bit because there was something swashbuckling about it, something like brash. And like Wentworth's a charger. He's a guy who's passionate and like authentically himself in every moment. And I thought this performance was a little bit like milk toast for what I wanted. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't what I wanted particularly. That's my hot take on this film, and Molly looks like she wants to die.
It's not that I wanna die, I'm just thinking, I'm just wondering, like, what it was that I liked so much about him.
The chemistry between him and Sally Hawkins is wonderful, and the, like, longing is there.
Yeah, and I think that the angst that, like, the gruffness and the angst that he's showing, like, is covering up something softer
Yeah, yeah.
that comes through at moments, so I really loved his performance, but I agree to disagree.
Yeah, this is respectful disagreement.
I would like to see a bit more of like a Frank Churchill flirtation coming through on a Wentworth, because I feel like he has that, like, especially like his situation with Louisa, which I know we'll get to like a bit further down. But I think there's something kind of cheeky and flirtatious in a Frank Churchill kind of way that I would love to see pulled out in a Wentworth a bit more.
That's exactly right, that, like, zest for
Yeah.
life, and this is part of the reason I feel like an adaptation of Persuasion would so benefit from flashbacks. Because if we can see the, like, brightness of Wentworth when he's with Anne the first time and see that, like, passion and joy in him, then you don't need it as much when you go into these other sections, but, like, coming into the film, if he's just morose for, like, the first half, then it's like, "Okay, we get it, you're bummed," but, like, I want something more than just, like, sternness and, like, anger coming from him. I want a little bit more, like, brightness and poppiness. Like, when Charles says to Mary, like, Wentworth is, like, the most enjoyable fellow he's ever been around, I'm like, "You haven't been around a lot of people because he's kind of a sad sack."
But that's when he's around Anne, and I do think that when we're reading the book for the first half, he is giving, like, anger, and that's, like, what makes her so sure that he hates her is, like, the vibe that he's giving off, so I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
I think that's important as well. I think it's a balance though. I actually agree with both of you. Like, I think it's a balance though.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is like and again, it's not the worst performance I've ever seen of an Austen hero by any stretch of the imagination. This actor is extremely handsome. He is clearly a good actor. It's just like a take on the character that I wanted like a little bit more oomph to. That's how I feel. Our listeners can let us know whether you agree with Izzy and Molly or whether or not you agree with me or whether or not you fall somewhere else on this spectrum. But people have really strong opinions about the people who played Captain Wentworth.
I'm so excited for you guys to watch the newer one because I'd love to know your thoughts on him because I think he was, for me, he was like totally way off in every direction.
Mm.
So I'd love to. I'm so excited to hear your thoughts on that one. So I'll have to listen to that episode.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's going to be several covering that. So Mary introduces Anne and Wentworth, and he says we're already acquainted. And Mary says, really? But Anne has never said a word about it. And he looks at Anne, like you can see the hurt in his eyes, and she panics and she's like, no, but it was a long time. It was a long time ago. You were at school, Mary. Like, that's why I never said anything. But the damage is done. And Anne closes her eyes and she like bites her bottom lip and she's like, fuck. And then she looks right at the camera
Again.
and pierces our soul, if you will. Then she journals about it while crying and looking into the camera. And then we get this line as kind of a voiceover on her way to dinner at Kellinge. Once there were no two hearts so open, no feelings so in harmony, but now we are strangers. No, worse than strangers, for we may never become acquainted. It is perpetual estrangement.
One of my favorite lines in Persuasion. It's absolutely beautiful.
It's so good.
One of the best lines Jane Austen has ever written. Oh my god.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that we just got it like straight out written down because like that's one of those things that you can't convey without the words.
No. I also agree with Anne though. I would have done the same. I wouldn't have said I'm a bit like an internalizer as well, so I would have just kept that whole thing to myself. I wouldn't have told anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And then at dinner at Kellinge, Mrs. Croft tries to introduce them again, and Anne says, and this broke my heart, Captain Wentworth and I were met briefly yesterday. Ouch.
Oh, Anne.
She doesn't know how to handle this whole situation, and poor Wentworth is like, all right, so we're pretending that we don't know each other. That's great.
Brutal.
At dinner, we learn that Captain Benwick's fiance, he's not there yet, but they're talking about him, and that his fiance, Fanny Harville, died while he was at sea. And that is because they had waited 5 years for him to get a fortune to appease her family, and now he has it, but too late. This is all Wentworth talking, and the camera's focused on Anne, and she's like, can we not talk about our exact situation?
Like, can someone kill me right now?
Yeah.
Literally. I just want to die in that whole conversation.
Oh,
Yeah, it's devastating. And Wentworth says, a man at sea shouldn't think of marriage anyway. But now that he's back, he's determined to settle down and would be willing to make a foolish match with anyone between 15 and 30. Again, Anne is like trying to melt away into the woodwork.
Equally, though, is this not the sassiness that I was saying about Wentworth? Like,
Yes.
He's so sassy.
oh yeah.
Like he's doing this on purpose. Like he's having this
Yeah.
conversation in front of her on purpose.
I know.
Playing a little game.
Oh my God. In the last one, when she says, I'm not a card player, like I'm no card player. And he's like, no, you never were. He's a card player. He is playing cards.
He seriously plays games in this. Like, I feel for Anne because I feel like she's not at his level of game playing, so she has no clue what to do.
Yeah.
But it's because she's Anne, and Anne is the type of person who is not going to like try to work things to her own advantage. She's just trying to survive moment to moment.
Yes.
So true.
Ugh.
So true. Do you think Wentworth thought that Anne was playing games where she kept being like, oh, like we don't know each other and oh, we only met yesterday? Do you think he was like, well, if this is the game plan, I can also play?
I do think that it's definitely born out of saltiness about that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he says what he wants most in a wife is firmness of character, someone who won't be persuaded away from their convictions. And when he says persuaded, Anne looks at the camera again, and it's like a nice little nod to it's in the title.
yeah.
So then Anne is playing the piano, and I was loving her lace sleeves. Like there's like a close up of her hands with these beautiful lace sleeves, and Wentworth is standing in the corner watching her.
She's playing Moonlight Sonata?
Oh,
Yeah, it's actually ringing a bell now that she does play that, doesn't she?
oh yeah. Persuasion 2007 Moonlight Sonata.
That's so melancholy as well, though, like classic. And just they're like so sad right now.
I thought that was an interesting choice because Beethoven is like a sad boy, in his music at least. He writes so many minor pieces, and
Yes.
then they like picked it to basically just be like morose, morose, morose. Wentworth staring at her, well, morose, and then let's do a jig, and then it's like this bright poppy music that's coming out while the Musgrove girlies are doing their best flirtation game with Wentworth.
And poor Anne just has to sit there and watch.
I feel like, let me just play my Suds tunes again. Like, let me play Beethoven.
Right. She just wants to be brooding. Like, why did everyone have to come in?
Oh my god, she has a breakup box and a breakup playlist.
Oh my god, she does.
Yes.
The ultimate breakup girly. The next day, Anne is walking with Mary and Charles, and they're talking about how handsome Wentworth is. And Mary says, well, he was kind of rude to Anne, though. He said that she was so altered, he would not have known her again. And Charles is like, well, he didn't say exactly that. And Mary, under her breath, is like, well, he was talking to me. Every time she talks, like her little voice that she does, where she just, she becomes a caricature of herself, and I am obsessed with it. And then they debate which sister he's going to go for. And Charles is saying Louisa, and Mary is saying Henrietta. And he's saying that Henrietta is spoken for. And Mary says that Charles' hater is nothing. He's a bad connection, and a girl shouldn't marry whoever she pleases if he would bring shame on her family. And of course, Anne is thinking about this.
Bullet hole straight to the heart of what Anne is feeling and thinking about entirely.
Hmm.
And I'm happy this adaptation picked up on that tension.
Yes. And Charles turns to Anne to ask for her opinion, but she is, of course, saved from answering by the approach of Wentworth, Henrietta, and Louisa, who are walking to go see Charles Hayter. And I loved this. Charles goes, oh, we will all go. I know Mary is in a fine sweat to see cousin Charles again after she was literally just talking shit about him. Oh my God. And then we get this scene. So
The fall.
Dramatic fall.
yes,
One of many.
yeah, well, the first, honestly, there's so much foreshadowing in this movie. They're walking to the haters, and Louisa goes over the little stile in the road, and she's like, catch me. And Wentworth catches her, and they do this romantic spin. And then they come to a log in the road, like going over a little stream. And first, Wentworth helps Louisa over, and Charles helps both Henrietta and Mary over, and then just leaves Anne to walk by herself over this log, and she falls, and we tumble with her, and the camera's looking up at the sky, and then Wentworth like swoops in to help her up in this like dramatic hero fashion, and then scampers off without saying anything to her.
And then Charles feels bad and just like walks with her, but she's like,
She's like, no, go on without me. I need some time to recoup. And he's like, okay.
The fall is so dramatic as well, especially has like mud on her face and everything. She's just like, wow, I took a tumble. It was extreme. Like,
yeah. Yeah. And she's limping for the rest of this scene too. Like,
I know. I hate it. I actually hate this moment though, because I'm like, I feel like it makes Anne look like really like old and decrepit in comparison to like Louisa and Henrietta. So it makes me cringe so bad because I'm just like, why does she look like the like old aunt right now?
but like, I think that's intentional because she is supposed to be like frail and she needs room to grow up in terms of hotness, you know?
Yeah.
But also, it makes the whole thing make a lot more sense with Wentworth going to the Crofts later and being like, take Anne, she's hurt, versus like, take Anne, she's so tired. She's so like exhausted from this exertion. Like, it makes a lot more sense for like a modern audience, I think, to watch and be like, oh yeah, she injured herself and he cares about her. So I actually quite liked the fall, even though it was a little insane.
I'm between the two. I liked the payoff of the fall, but the actual moment, I was like, what happened and why are we doing this?
Yeah. So Mary doesn't want to go to the house. So she tells Henrietta and Charles to go on without her. And this is when she turns to Wentworth and she's like, oh, I have only been in this house twice. And there's something about the way she's like leaning and talking that just like gives her such bog witch energy. Like she's so twitchy and like hunched over, and I gotta keep giving her flowers. She's so weird. I love it.
And it's how Wentworth looks at her as well. Like, he's like, what are you doing? Like,
That's what I mean. They've made Mary like an off-putting character.
Yeah.
And I can't be too mad about it because it's just like this actress is going for Urkel, but like Jane Austen era. Like
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, she kind of gives Mr. Collins. I don't know if anyone else is getting that vibe.
Yeah.
honestly, I kind of love that as like a feminist take. Like we deserve to have a female Mr. Collins.
Yeah, the creepy hands and everything. I'm like, it's
The
yeah.
hands, yeah.
The
Like,
teeth.
remember Mr. Collins's wave?
Wait.
Oh, man. So Wentworth and Louisa are walking, and we get this shot of them like through the bushes, and like we're in a spy film, and they're talking about how Mary has too much Elliot pride, and they all wish Charles had married Anne. And Wentworth fully stops and looks at her and is like, "What? He wanted to marry Anne? Did she refuse him? Why?" Like giving such hopeful puppy dog energy that like it's almost hard to believe. I mean, it's not hard to believe, but, like, reading the book, I was like, "Oh, he hates her, he's mad at her." Like, he thinks that she was persuaded away from another man and her character is weak. But the way that he turns to Louisa as at a full stop is really giving, like, "She said no to someone else?"
It's almost intense. Like Louise is just there, like having general conversation, and Wentworth's like interrogation time. Like, what was the time, date? Like, what was the situation? I need all the information.
Yeah.
I do we haven't talked about this yet. I do quite like this Louisa. She's a proper mix of bubbly and like also like really sure of herself and confident for a woman of her age.
Mhm.
And I think that's like precisely right for the character. I also think this scene was interesting because at the end of it, when she talks about how Lady Russell probably persuaded Anne away from Charles, he goes back to what your original take on the scene was, Molly, which was that like the reason he's asking is he's wondering if another guy got screwed over by the same persuasion thing
Right.
as him. So you kind of get both in the middle of this scene.
Yes, exactly.
That's so funny. I never took it that way, that he was like trying to see if someone else had been. I thought he was like looking at it because he was like, hang on a second. Like Anne's not this like lonely person that nobody's interested in. There's actually other people. And I thought he wanted the intel because he was like, actually, are other people trying to marry her? Because maybe I need to change up my game plan.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, that's precisely like what I took away the first time I read it. But like Molly's take the first time she read it through was that it was more evidence that Anne was of this persuadable character that he couldn't.
Right. Well, because it goes into the conversation where Louisa says that Lady Russell persuaded Anne away, but as for her, she would never be so easily persuaded. And she says, "When I've made up my mind, I've made it, and I am quite determined." And she looks him up and down, and he says, like, I love people of your character, like, and just like this conversation that Anne is overhearing, she's focusing in on the persuasion of it all and the fact that like Louise is saying her character is more determined and Wentworth saying he likes that. Which then we realize we're watching through the bushes because Anne is in the bushes watching this conversation, which I loved as a reveal.
Yeah, I also love that moment. And also die for it at the same time. Because I'm just like, oh my God, there's like I feel like ignorance is bliss sometimes. There's just conversations you don't need to hear.
Absolutely.
Yes. So then they're in the woods, they're all walking, and they run into the Crofts, and Wentworth whispers something to the Crofts, and then they offer to take Anne home, which is what we were just talking about with he wants her to go home because she's injured. And then this is a weird choice. He comes over and he just picks her up and puts her in the carriage.
I kind of loved that.
I kind of love that.
I mean, it was hot.
I love it. I'm here for a bit of assertiveness. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's the moments I like best from Wentworth where he is sure of himself and he like does something like with like purpose. And like there was something really like gallant about him sweeping her up and placing her down.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely can see it that way. I was also texting with our Patreon Discord at the time, and everyone in there was like, he's treating her like she's a baby." Like when he like scooped her up, and she didn't say yes to going in the carriage yet, and so I could see it from both ways. It could either be infantilizing or like sweeping you off your feet hot, because then she is like breathless and she's like, "Thank you, Captain." And every time she says captain, also, it's almost like she's saying daddy. Like she whispers captain every time throughout
Mm.
this movie. She's like, "Captain Wentworth," or like, "Oh,
I
captain,
mean,
thank you."
he was just a Mr. Frederick Wentworth when she met him.
Yes. And now he's captain.
He's now captain.
Yeah, it is quite sexy.
Yeah, I also think like with the lifting thing too, like maybe I would find it like a bit intense if someone just like picked me up. I think I would be emotional because I think they'd be angry with me. I'd be like, why is he so angry that he's literally just like, he's like, let's get rid of her.
That's what I
Running it.
thought.
If a boy I liked picked me up like I was nothing and placed me somewhere because he was worried about my injuries, I would think about that for like 5 years afterwards. That would hit.
Yeah, I
That would
think
hit
I
home for
would.
me.
I would as well, but I'm equally like, I'd have to know for sure that he was worried about my injuries and not just thinking I was like this loser who slipped over on a log earlier and now he wants to get
Ah!
rid of.
Yeah, the whole time I read this the first time, I thought that he wanted to get rid of Anne because he didn't wanna walk with her anymore. So, like, that was my first interpretation of it, and I think that it could still be interpreted that way for sure.
If a man I liked was just like, "You're tired and you're injured, let's get you home," I would be gone. Oh,
I think it would help if Louisa wasn't additionally there and he'd been like chatting and flirting with
yes.
Louisa. Like, I part of me'd be like, okay, he's trying to get rid of me because he doesn't want his ex like lingering around.
Yeah,
Oh, I would be in the group chat with my friends being like, "The mixed signals are so real because, like, he's been talking to this other girl, but then he did this." Ugh. Ugh.
yes.
I'm also like, I was back in my single days, like, rather delulu, so this would have just, like, really hit home if I really cared about him.
Yes. And Anne is the entire ride home just, like, in her feelings about the fact that he just touched her waist and all of it, and so she's not even able to engage with the Crofts conversation, which is, of course, about which of the Musgrove girls Wentworth is going to go after. And when they get home, Anne is journaling, thinking about how he's never gonna forgive her. It's solidified when Mary runs in and tells Anne that they're going to Lyme. And that seems like a great place to end this first episode of our coverage of the 2007-2008 Persuasion. Izzy, thank you so much for joining us for this. Do you want to tell our listeners where they can find you and your podcast on the internet?
Yeah, absolutely. So the podcast is What the Austen. It's on all podcasting streaming platforms and it's also on YouTube. So I do put the video versions. If you prefer to see people's faces, that is an option. And then for all of the Jane Austen vlogs, my YouTube channel is Izzy Meakin. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Listeners, for next time, we are going to be covering the second half of this movie, and Izzy will be returning for that as well. But until next time, stay proper.
And try not to slip off a log while you're walking across it.
Good advice.
Just balance. Balance is important, people. Pod and Prejudice is edited by Molly Burdick and audio produced by Graham Cook. Our show art is designed by Torrance Brown. Our show is transcribed by SpeechDocs Podcast Transcription. For transcripts and to learn more about our team, check out our website at podandprejudice.com. To keep up with the show, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Pod and Prejudice. If you love what you hear, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/podandprejudice to see how you can support us, or just drop us a rating and a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.